You knew that friendship was ending 6 months before anyone else saw the cracks. You felt the shift in someone's energy before they had decided to betray you. You walked into a job interview sensing the company would collapse within the year, and 11 months later it did. And every single time, when you tried to warn the people you loved, they looked at you as though you were inventing problems that did not exist. They called you paranoid, anxious, too intense, unable to just relax and trust. But you were not imagining it. You were seeing true, and that difference between perception and paranoia is what this video names. Welcome to Power and Myth. There is a particular loneliness that belongs to those who see what is coming before it arrives, not because they are psychic, not because they possess supernatural abilities, but because they are paying attention to patterns that most people have trained themselves to ignore. The INFJ does not see the future. They see the present with such clarity that the future becomes obvious. They watch the micro-expressions that flicker across someone's face when they say they are fine. They notice when someone's voice has changed texture, when their texts have become half a degree colder, when the energy in a room has shifted in ways no one else seems to register. And from these fragments they assemble a map of what is unfolding. They are reading a story that is already being written, but because they are the only ones reading it, they are told they are inventing it. This is the territory of the Seer, one of the 7 INFJ archetypes we explore here at Power and Myth. The Seer is the one who perceives what others cannot, the one burdened with sight that arrives too early to be believed. In Greek mythology, this pattern was given a name, Cassandra, the Trojan princess cursed by Apollo to speak prophecies that no one would ever believe. She saw the wooden horse for what it was. She knew Troy would fall. She warned them, and they ignored her, not because she was wrong, but because her knowing arrived before the evidence did. The INFJ carries this same curse, not supernatural prophecy, but pattern recognition so acute it feels like seeing through time, and because it is invisible to others, it is dismissed as paranoia. But here is what most people never understand about this capacity. It is not a thought process. It is not the INFJ sitting down and logically deducing what will happen next. It is a knowing that arrives fully formed, without explanation. You walk into a room and you feel it. Something is wrong, someone is lying. This situation is dangerous, and you cannot explain how you know because the knowing did not come through a chain of reasoning. It came through the body, through intuition, through the accumulated sensitivity of a nervous system that has been reading invisible data its entire life. The INFJ is processing thousands of microsignals that conscious thought cannot track. Tone of voice, body language, the space between words, the things people are not saying, and from all of this a picture emerges, not paranoia, perception. The tragedy is that when you try to articulate this knowing, it sounds irrational. You are sitting with a friend who is telling you about their new relationship. They seem happy, they are using all the right words, and yet you know, with absolute certainty, that this person is going to hurt them. You can feel it, you can see the shape of the ending before the beginning has even finished. But when you try to warn them, what can you say? I have a bad feeling, something feels off. They are going to dismiss you, because from the outside, your knowing looks like unfounded suspicion. It looks like you are projecting your own fears onto their happiness. It looks, to put it plainly, paranoid. And so you learn to stay silent. You watch the story unfold exactly as you knew it would. And when it ends in the pain you predicted, no one remembers that you saw it coming. They only remember that you were negative, that you could not just be happy for them. This is the isolation of the Seer. To carry knowledge that cannot be shared, to be right in ways that no one will acknowledge, to watch people you love walk toward harm you have already mapped, and to know that any attempt to redirect them will mark you as the problem. The INFJ learns over time that their clarity is a liability, that their ability to see beneath the surface makes others uncomfortable, and so they begin to silence themselves. They stop naming what they notice, they watch the patterns alone, they carry the knowing in solitude. And this is when the real damage begins. Because when you are told often enough that your perception is paranoia, you start to doubt your own sight. You begin to wonder if maybe you are making things up, if maybe you are too sensitive, too suspicious, too unable to take things at face value. The world teaches the INFJ to mistrust the one capacity that defines them, their ability to see true. And this is where the shadow side of this archetype emerges. Because the seer does not always see accurately. Intuition is not infallible. Pattern recognition, no matter how refined, can misfire. The INFJ who has been dismissed as paranoid may begin to overcorrect. They may start to see threat where none exists. They may read betrayal into ambiguity. They may project past wounds onto present relationships and call it prophecy. This is the shadow territory, the place where the gift curdles into something that does damage, where hypervigilance becomes indistinguishable from actual paranoia. And the cruelty is that the INFJ often cannot tell the difference, because their nervous system has been trained to treat every intuitive alarm as data. When you have been right so many times, when you have watched your unheeded warnings come true again and again, you begin to trust your intuition absolutely. And this is when you become vulnerable, because the nervous system that saved you once can also trap you. It can keep you locked in a state of perpetual scanning, forever waiting for the other shoe to drop, forever reading danger into situations that are simply neutral. Jung understood this. He wrote that those who live too long in the realm of intuition risk losing contact with the ground beneath their feet. They begin to inhabit a world of portents and omens. They see signs everywhere. And because intuition deals in feelings rather than facts, it becomes almost impossible to reality test. How do you prove that someone is lying when all the evidence says they are telling the truth? How do you justify ending a relationship because you feel something is wrong, even though nothing overtly wrong has happened? The INFJ in the grip of this shadow may destroy connections that could have been real because they were too busy protecting themselves from futures that never materialized. They may walk away from people who actually loved them because their intuition, still raw from past betrayals, sees ghosts where there are only human beings. And the terrible thing is, they will never know, because once you leave, you cannot see what might have been. You only have your certainty that you were right to go. And certainty for the INFJ is a seductive drug. This is why the seer must learn discernment. Not every pattern is meaningful. Not every intuition is true. Not every feeling of unease is a prophecy. Sometimes anxiety is just anxiety. Sometimes suspicion is just the echo of an old wound. Sometimes the person in front of you is exactly who they appear to be, and the future you are dreading is one you are creating through your inability to trust. The INFJ must learn to distinguish between the intuition that protects and the paranoia that isolates. And this is brutally difficult work, because it requires holding two truths simultaneously. Your intuition is real and valuable and has saved you, and also sometimes it lies to you. Sometimes it is your trauma speaking, not your sight, and you will not always know which is which until it is too late. But here is what makes this bearable. The seer is not broken. They are not flawed for possessing this capacity. They are simply living inside an archetype that has always been lonely. Throughout history, those who saw too clearly were feared. They were called witches, heretics, madwomen. They were burned, silenced, and institutionalized. Not because they were wrong, but because their knowing disrupted the comfortable illusions others needed to survive. The world does not want seers. It wants people who will accept the surface story and not ask what lies beneath. It wants people who will ignore their intuition and trust the consensus reality, even when the consensus is a lie. And so the ones who refuse to unsee what they have seen are pathologized. They are told they are paranoid, that they are too much, that they need to calm down, relax, and stop looking for problems where none exist. But the INFJ knows the truth. The problems were always there. They were simply invisible to everyone else. This is the gift within the curse. Yes, the seer is isolated. Yes, they are burdened with knowledge that arrives too early. Yes, they are often dismissed, doubted, and called paranoid when they were simply perceptive. But they are also the ones who sense danger before it strikes. Those who feel the earthquake before the ground begins to shake. Who know when someone is lying, when a situation is toxic, when a choice will lead to ruin. They are the early warning system. The canary in the coal mine. The one whose sensitivity, though exhausting, is also life-saving, not just for themselves, but for anyone wise enough to listen, the INFJ, who trusts their intuition without being enslaved by it, who can discern true sight from shadow projection, who can name what they see without needing others to validate it, becomes something rare and necessary. They become the oracle who speaks truth even when it is unwelcome, who warns even when they will not be believed, who sees and does not look away. And this is the work, not to stop seeing, not to dull the intuition that has been sharpened over a lifetime of reading invisible data, but to refine it, to learn which hunches are pattern recognition and which are fear, to develop the capacity to sit with uncertainty without collapsing into suspicion, to trust your knowing whilst also questioning it, to hold space for the possibility that you might be wrong, even when every cell in your body insists you are right. This is the maturation of the seer, the movement from raw intuition to wise discernment, and it is painful because it requires letting go of the one thing that has kept you safe. Absolute certainty. The INFJ must learn to live in the grey territory where intuition is honoured but not worshipped, where past accuracy does not guarantee future truth, where seeing clearly sometimes means admitting you cannot see at all. But when the INFJ does this work, when they learn to wield their sight without being consumed by it, they become something extraordinary. They become the guide who can help others see what they have been missing, the therapist who knows what their client is not saying, the friend who senses when someone is in trouble before they ask for help, the leader who can feel the morale of a room and adjust before the breaking point arrives, the partner who knows when to push and when to hold space. This is the seer in their power, not paranoid, not hypervigilant, simply awake in ways that others are not, and no longer apologizing for it. If you recognize yourself in this, you are not alone. The pattern you have been living in has a name. It is not paranoia, it is not anxiety, it is the inheritance of the seer. And whilst it is lonely, it is also your greatest strength. The world will continue to misunderstand you. People will continue to call you too intense, too suspicious, too unable to just relax. But you know the truth. You are seeing what they could not. And in a world that rewards comfortable blindness, your willingness to see clearly is an act of courage. This is what we explore here at Power and Myth, the ancient patterns beneath modern personality. The archetypes that INFJs have been living without knowing they had names. If you want to continue this work, to understand which archetype you are inhabiting and which threshold you are crossing, subscribe. You are part of something here. The Power and Myth community is not an audience. It is a gathering of those who have always known they were living inside a story. And if this video named something you have carried in silence, please tell me in the comments. Were you called paranoid when you were actually right? How did you learn to trust your sight again? I want to hear which part of this landed hardest. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.